Pregame.com.
Welcome back to Pregame.tv. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, joined by Ken Thomson, SportsX Radio in Las Vegas, and Yahoo Sports Radio. I'm not going to give you
give me the Yahoo.
Yeah, you only get one of those. We're going to look at some of the series, even maybe take a look at some of the futures and to win the championship. And Ken, as far as the futures go, I want to get to that one first in a second. I don't like to bet a team for the future to win the championship, because generally speaking, at this point of the year, there's no value in doing that. If you think there's value, it's going to be on one of the longer shots. And if you've got a team that's that big of a long shot, you could play series prices with the dog and do a mechanical parlay, just keep taking the team in the series, rolling the money over. You're going to do better that way than betting a team at 8-1, 9-1, whatever that you could get. And then the short prices, there's absolutely no value, and especially when you're dealing with the West, where literally there's 8 teams in the West. It would not surprise me. I could go 4 or 5 deep to say has a legitimate shot of coming out of the West. I don't know how deep you would go there, but I think 4 or 5 teams can do it.
I do too, and I know everybody's. There's a lot of people. I shouldn't say everybody, and we do that too often in radio. But most people are saying San Antonio or Oklahoma City. And when Memphis beat Dallas in the overtime, and OKC barely got past Detroit by a point on Durant's dunk, but then people looked and they go, 2-7, 2-7. That could be the most interesting matchup in the entire playoffs, because Memphis did take them out last year, and they took them out handily, and it's not a good matchup for OKC because of the style of Memphis.
It is, but one thing I'll point out about that Memphis Oklahoma City series last year, that was actually my playoff bet of the year. I took Memphis for the series in that one, and the reason for that was, if you remember, Russell Westbrook went down the series before, and Oklahoma City barely got by Houston without Russell Westbrook, and then they had absolutely no shot against Memphis, with the way Memphis plays defense and can limit Kevin Durant. Without that second go-to guy, Oklahoma City was in trouble last year. So you got the revenge motive in that series, and that's a good angle to talk about, and we'll look at that series. Memphis is a 7 seed that you really don't want to play, because this is the type of team that can frustrate you, like we talked about in an earlier video with the Chicago Bulls. When you play hard-nosed defense and you're physical and you're banging on them, 7-game series, if you get by, it's going to take a lot out of you getting by a team like that.
Yeah, well, look at Oklahoma City, the number 2 seed, but who played better ball in the second half of the season? Marc Gasol comes back 33-13 for Memphis, best record in the Western Conference. San Antonio right there. But again, OKC, if they're that dominant in a game that you need to fend off the Clippers, how do you play Detroit, a team that's already done? Their general manager, Joe Dumars, has resigned, and you barely beat them in the last second on your home court. I don't think Oklahoma City is yes, they can score. They can fill it up. But can they play defense? And we know Tony Allen, one of the best defensive players in the NBA. Durant's going to have his work cut out. He'll get his, but can Westbrook, can the other guys, Ibaka, can these guys step up? And again, Memphis, they're playing on, as we call it here in Vegas, house money, because they are a 7 seed. So we're looking at them as one of those teams, but most sharp players understand that this Memphis team is a very tough matchup for OKC.
It is, and Memphis is a team that ended up with the 7 seed, and I was down at Lugazi Stadium doing your show on Monday night, and remember, Monday night, if they lose the game in Phoenix, this is a team that might not even have made the playoffs. They went from, having to win that game on Monday night against Phoenix to lock down the 8th seed, and then they leapfrogged the 7 whenever they beat Dallas in the final day of regulation season. But this team was really basically one game they could have been out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and hats off to Phoenix. A great story, a great job. Hornacek in his first year really doing a nice job there. So Phoenix, a team with a lot of potential, because nobody saw them coming at all. Dragic had a nice season. The Morris boys stepped up. So I expect that team to make a few tweaks and changes and really come at it next year, and Phoenix will be interesting. But again, it is a shame that we don't just have it 1 through 16, because then the Suns would have been in. And I know new Commissioner Silver is looking at that as a possibility, to where everybody plays everybody about 3 times, and you don't have, the discrepancy with the Eastern Conference going against the East over and over again, and West, and just playing these teams twice during the regular season. So I'd like to see it that way, because it kills me when I see a team like Atlanta, 8-9 games under 500, and a team, Phoenix, 12 games over 500, not make the postseason.
Before we move off of this series, how much do you put into revenge factor? There's all different kinds of revenge, but for me, playoff revenge is at the top of my list, because that's a team that ended your season. You remember the team. I know in the NFL, I love whenever a playoff revenge matchup comes up during the regular season. I'm usually on the team that lost, to that team and got knocked out of the playoffs. How do you feel with Oklahoma City? Because remember last year, many people thought this was Oklahoma City's year last year, because they had gone all the way to the finals the year before, and just that young team, that learning experience, first time on the big stage. The Heat were too much for them, and a lot of people wanted to see Oklahoma City in a rematch with the Heat. But once Westbrook went down, that ended their season. Do you think this team is poised to make that run back to the finals?
I'll tell you what, I don't look at revenge as much. First off, players change on teams with free agency year in, year out. Now, the nucleus for both these teams is still there. The coach is different. Hollins is out at Memphis. But as far as the revenge factor, I think once you get there and OKC gets there as a 2 seed, they're going to have to play 3 teams. They don't care who they are. They know they're going to be quality teams, especially in the Western Conference. They got to take out whoever's in their way. It just so happens that Memphis, the team that took them out last year in the first round, our second round is going to be the team that they play in the first round. So, again, not as much.
Yeah, Oklahoma City minus 360 for the series price. And I'm quoting numbers from Stations Properties here in
I would only take Memphis on that price. I would never lay 360 on OKC.
Let's segue to Atlanta, because you talked about them and their dismal record. Any shot at all against Indiana?
Not in my book. I thought this was the one matchup that made sense for the Pacers. And when they did get the home court advantage, and when they did play well in 2 of their last 3 games, coming off the loss against Miami, to bounce back, get that home court advantage, I think Indiana's focused. And my favorite play in the playoffs is going to be first half Indiana at home against Atlanta, game 1, because Atlanta did embarrass them. So a revenge here because of the way they got embarrassed. Indiana remembers walking off the court in that game when they were battling Miami for that home court advantage, getting booed where they scored just 25 points or whatever it was, down 30 in the first half. I think they come out with fire in their eyes, and they just blow out Atlanta first half and game 1.
I agree with both points that you make there, and I think this is what Indiana needs, is a team that they can kind of flex their muscles against to try to regain confidence, because even though they won the number 1 seed, it's almost like they won it by default, because I think it was more Miami gave it away, lost it, whatever. So I think they move on, but there's no value. They're minus 650 against Atlanta. One of the more interesting series, and we talked about this one when we did the video earlier, Brooklyn and Toronto. Here's a team that doesn't have home court advantage, but yet Vegas has made them the $1.25 favorite in the series with Brooklyn. And everybody, we said, the talking heads, Brooklyn's a team you don't want to play. They played great basketball the second half of the season. Forget the last 6 games, because, whether they mailed it in or not, and we talked about speculation that they, maybe they didn't want to win. They didn't, want to face the Bulls. So what do you think on this series? Do they come out of it against Toronto?
I'll tell you what, instead of taking Toronto for the series at a minus 105 or whatever it is, minus 110, why do it? Do what you said. Take them on the money line, game 1, or the minus 2 points. There's some 2s, 2.5s around. If they win this game, yes, they have a good chance to win the series, but you still think there's a good chance Brooklyn can come back, even it up, and then take it back home. So I'm going to put my eggs in the Toronto basket game 1. I'm not going to risk it, because if Brooklyn wins game 1, there's no way Toronto's winning this series. So I'm going to take Toronto game 1, and that's it. I'm going to leave that series alone after that.
Okay. One of the other more interesting series, competitively priced, is Chicago-Washington. Chicago's a 190 favorite. Washington, this is a team that is on the rise. They're a young team, got a good nucleus. John Wall, what more can you say about him? Great basketball player. and he's still just learning. Remember, he's one of the college kids go in, boom, you're there for a cup of coffee and you're out and into the NBA. His game has evolved. That team is playing well, but can they beat this Chicago Bull team? You've got veterans on this team. They're a physical team. They know how to play defense. And we always say, when it comes playoff time, give me the defense.
Tim Duncan is a guy that I would pay to go see every night. You know why? Because he brings his lunch pail and he's there night in, night out. And if you don't think Joakim Noah is the same way, I mean, this kid is phenomenal. He just plays as blue-collar a game as we've seen in a long time, night in, night out. I mean, still diving. It's amazing how he stays healthy. And we know he's had some foot problems in the past and he's been banged up at times. But the way that he goes at it 110% all the time, I'll tell you what, if his dad ever went like that on the tennis court, he'd have won 5 Wimbledon.
I agree with you on Noah. This is a kid that we know he's a superstar, but he doesn't carry that superstar status. I mean, I think that he's underrated in the eyes of a lot of people. They don't give him the credit that he deserves. And with Derrick Rose out for 2 years, most people figured this team wouldn't even be competitive again. Having the crushing defeat of, him coming back this year and then get hurt early in the season. But I like Chicago. And that, to me, they are the one team I don't want to face in the playoffs. And I just think their experience. Washington's one of those ones we talk about that it's a growing experience. Mm-hmm. You got to pay your dues in the NBA. This will be a learning experience for Washington, but it'll be a bad learning experience. They'll get knocked out. Chicago moves on. Realistically,
when they traded Luol Deng to Cleveland, didn't you think they were saying, with Derrick Rose out, get rid of Deng, we'll try and bolster for next year? Thibodeau is the coach. And again, I've talked on my show where Carmelo Anthony inquiring from some of the current Bulls players, hey, what's it like to play for Thibodeau? And I'm thinking Carmelo, he plays defense. You don't need to be there. You're not going to play defense there. You're a scorer. I don't know if that's a nice mix. I know the Derrick Rose thing has hurt them, but really, it's incredible how this team has moved forward without Rose, now without Deng. Thibodeau's phenomenal. I think he's one of the greatest coaches in the NBA.
I agree with you. Get your take. To me, number one, without questions, Pop.
No doubt. Yeah. My favorite.
You put Thibodeau second now in the NBA?
Yes, right there.
Okay. How about Portland-Houston? That's another interesting series. You've got Houston minus 200. Portland is a team, at the beginning of the season, first 2 months, I mean, Portland was playing great basketball, and it was where did this come from? We knew they were going to be a better team this year. I didn't expect them to be as good as they played the first 2 months. They hit that little bit of a slide. They had a 3-8 stretch in March, but then they finished the season strong. And this is a team that's got momentum coming back now into the playoffs, playing a Houston team that was playing good basketball. And Dwight Howard, the back injuries and stuff with him. Who comes out of this one?
Yeah, this is a great series. And Portland, I liken them to the Colorado Avalanche in the NHL. Started like a ball of fire. Like you said, middle of the season, kind of what happened to this team? Now they've regressed so much, but then real strong the last month. And I'll tell you what, Portland, as long as Aldridge is healthy, they're a factor. There is no doubt. Houston, Howard's got to stay healthy. He's got to be on the court night in, night out. Getting Beverly back is huge. Number one, he's a great defensive player, but also he gives them the depth and the scoring off the bench as well. So, again, this is a series I'll leave alone. This is a 4-5 series. Again, home court comes into play for Houston. It's a series that can go 7, no doubt.
Taking $170 doesn't tempt you?
Nah, I can't do it. I really think that either way, this series could,
It's a coin flip?
It is for me.
Take it game by game. All right, one of the more interesting, price-wise, they say it's no contest, but I just think the Clippers are going to have a little bit of problems with Golden State just because this Golden State team, they were the ones that, made a little bit of a run last year, got that taste of the playoffs, little chippy with the Clippers, so this isn't going to be an easy series. I do think the Clippers are one of the teams to beat in the West. To me, my top three are the 1, 2, 3 seeds, San Antonio, OKC, and the Clippers. Blake Griffin, I mean, his game has just evolved so much this year. Do you take that as it's just Blake Griffin maturing more as a player in general, or how much do you give credit to Doc Rivers coming there?
Well, Doc Rivers is huge, and especially this is where Doc shines the postseason. So a big advantage there over Mark Jackson and Golden State. But the loss of Bogut is huge. I mean, there is no replacing Andrew Bogut. They needed him. They needed him because he's physical and he can box out Blake Griffin. He can grab those boards. Now they're in trouble. Now they're going to have to play small ball. They're going to have to light it up. They don't have the Jarrett Jack that helped them, giving them that three-man guy with Curry and with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, like his old man, needs to keep his mouth shut. I mean, that's the problem. You don't want to intimidate Blake Griffin, and he was talking some crap, you know, on an FM station up there in the Bay Area. You don't want to. I mean, first off, you're missing your big guy. Now you're going to go to battle without Bogut, and you're going to talk crap against Blake Griffin, and they have the home court advantage. And again, this is where Doc Rivers shines. I expect the Clippers to come out of this series. I think Golden State will steal a couple games. Why? Because Curry and Thompson are that good, and they could outscore them if they get them into that type of run-and-gun game. I think the Clippers can play either style. I know they like to score and run it up and down. Chris Paul has matured big time. He's playing great ball, and they've got depth. And I really think the Clippers are dangerous like you do. I won't take Golden State.
I think, I like what you said about the Clippers, that they could play both ways. I think the Clippers become more dangerous if they play a defensive game and get this into a half-court game. And I think that come playoff times, and Doc Rivers with his experience, when it comes time for the X's and O's and making adjustments in game, you're talking light years between him and Vinny Del Negro that was there calling the shots before. And you think about the Clippers were good with Vinny there running, calling the shots. How good are they going to be in the postseason with Doc Rivers on the sidelines? I think that's huge, and that's why I think the Clippers are going to make a deep run, and they'll get by Golden State here. I just think because of the rivalry and, the bad blood between these teams and the teams shooting their mouths off, I think Golden State will take one or two games, but I think the Clippers win this in 6.
I'll tell you what, if Bogut was there, it's a 7-game series. I mean, to me, it would have been a great matchup, but I agree with you. I think the Clippers take care of business, and I think they are good enough to come out of the West, and we'll have to see how OKC fares against Memphis and San Antonio, of course. The number 1 seed will take on Dallas.
All right, the other two that really don't need a lot of talk, Miami, Charlotte, this is going to be a burial for Charlotte for this series. They think they can, just because Miami doesn't seem to focus for every game, I think there's going to be spots for Charlotte with the points in this series, some spots, but they've got no shot of advancing at all, and that is why.
Minus 2,300, right?
At stations, it was 2,100.
2,100, okay. Yeah, CGT actually had it minus 2,300, and I just looked. I said, well, Charlotte, here's the thing, as well as they played down the stretch, and again, a lot of it against mediocre competition from the Eastern Conference, they did what they needed to do, 16 of 22. They won 8 of their last 9, and they did lose to Miami badly in that 22-game stretch, but that was after they played OKC and right before they played Indiana, so they were kind of caught in that Bermuda Triangle, so to speak. But I think Charlotte really has an opportunity to win Game 1. If they win Game 1, you have a series of 6 or 7. If you lose Game 1, it's a sweep, or maybe they win 1.
In the last one, San Antonio, Dallas, everybody's, putting the Spurs as back into the NBA Finals is a rematch. The Spurs are great, no question about it, and we know they got the best coach in basketball. Dallas, they've owned pretty much, but is it a slam dunk for the Spurs to get to the NBA Finals?
No, let's remember, too, Dallas is playing at a very high pace right, a very high rate right now, because they needed to just get into the playoffs. So you're looking at these teams, Memphis and Dallas, and even Golden State for a while before they lost Bogut. I had them in that category of just trying to qualify, make sure you get in there, because you don't want to have a nice season where you finish 12, 15, 18 games over 500, and you're on the outside looking in like poor Phoenix is. So again, Dallas, there's no pressure on Dallas right now. Mark Cuban will be there. And let's remember, they went into Memphis that last game of the regular season. They took that game to overtime. They were right there. They actually squandered a lead down the stretch, or they could have had the 7 seed. So Dallas playing pretty good ball. San Antonio, though, the depth. Tony Parker running the show. I just love Tony Parker. I mean, this guy, to me, is one of the best point guards that I've seen in my day. He's a guy that really ignites the offense. Tim Duncan, of course, another, like I told you, blue-collar guy that night in, night out is solid. You have Kawhi Leonard healthy. That's huge. Need him. And he's always a defensive defensive stopper wherever the other good team that they're playing has that score. You know, Kawhi Leonard could be that guy, the stopper.
And Leonard has just expanded his game. From one season to another, I think he's been one of the most improved players, and he's always been a great defensive player, and he's gotten better at his skill there. But now he can add some offense to you, too, and, you know, he's a threat. I like him. Tony Parker, I agree with you 100%, but he's got to stay healthy for the playoffs, and that's the only problem with Tony Parker is, you know, over the last couple of years, he's had some nagging injuries that have slowed him down and cost him some games. But, you know, Pop's been good on managing this team in the minutes for them as he does every year.
Yeah, and they find depth when all these guys are nursing injuries or they're getting rested. You know, that's what Pop does. He expands the roster, and they find some depth, and they're going to make a run. And it's going to be interesting. I agree with you. There are 4 or 5 that could come out. Portland and Houston, to me, still a notch behind the top 3. And I have San Antonio a little bit over OKC, a little bit more over the Clippers, but I think the Clippers might actually be a tougher matchup for San Antonio. And so, again, with Memphis taking a lot out of OKC, win or lose that series, OKC second round and on, if they make it past Memphis, could be drained a little bit, and it could end up Western Conference Finals. You could see San Antonio and the LA Clippers.
That would be a great Western Conference Finals, that's for sure. All right, guys, that's it. We kind of gave you a preview of all the series. Playoffs start tomorrow. We'll be here next week. We'll be covering the playoff games early in the week, late in the week. So there'll be videos up all week for you, and we'll start squeezing in some baseball plays for you as well.
Exactly.
He's Ken Thomson. I'm Marco D'Angelo. Guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy Easter. Grab those eggs and ham. We'll be eating good on Sunday, that's for sure.
You know it is, and I like the Easter attire here. Hey, that's where I come from. I mean, I love our sports gaming, all that stuff. It's all about the Lord, and Sunday will be a big day, and we'll be taking in a lot of playoff action. It'll be great.
All right, guys, have a good one. Cash some tickets, guys. We'll be back next week, pregame.tv.